This weekend, the playoffs continue. On Sunday afternoon, we've got that very, very exciting championship semifinal between Forge FC and Atletico Ottawa at Hamilton Stadium. The winner goes directly to the CPL Final on November 9th. They will host that final. We know how important that is because the last two finals have been won by the home teams. The loser of that game has to go down into the contender semifinal and play either Cavalry or York United. Mitchell, we've seen some incredible battles between Forge and Ottawa this year. These two teams have set the tone, set the pace in the Canadian Premier League this year. Forge won the Shield. Ottawa finished 2 points off them. These are the two teams probably playing the best football in the Canadian Premier League this year. How excited are you for this one? And just how do you gauge what you're expecting in a match like this?
Oh man, well, first and foremost, like this is obviously the class of the league going up against each other in this championship semifinal. Like, these are the two teams that have been far and away the best all year. They've been so consistent. They've been setting all kinds of records throughout the season. So to see them get to meet up again in the playoffs is going to be nothing short of spectacular. And I think really, like, if you look at all the past championship semifinals, this is the one where it feels like both sides have just an incredible amount of motivation going into it. Like, you look at Forge and how clear it is that the North Star Cup is still the trophy that they covet the most. That as much as it was, thrilling to win the CPL Shield, right? Like, they really, really want to do the double and put past the shadow of a doubt that this was the best Forge team of all time. And you look across at Atletico Ottawa, and really this is their last chance to make sure that this season, isn't almost really, because they've had so many opportunities here to do something really special this year. And obviously, on paper and with everything they've done, it's been a special, spectacular season. But at every step of the way, there's been that Forge team just being that inch better than them. And that's the reason we're not talking about this Atletico Ottawa team as a historic CPL side among the best in history, is because there's been a Forge team who's just been that little bit better. So this is their opportunity to get them back a little bit, to reach a final in Ottawa for a second time. And we know how spectacular that final was. So it's going to be really good. And both sides are coming in good form, and none more so than Atletico Ottawa. As much as we've talked about all the points that they kind of dropped down the stretch, they're 9 unbeaten going into this. They haven't lost, of course, since they lost to Forge in Hamilton back on August 17th. So they're in great form. And Forge, they're coming in off the back of a tremendous home win as well that will give them plenty of confidence. And I think critically, Brian Wright, 2 goals. These are the games he was signed for, right? Like, we look at the playoffs last year and the way Forge played. They were missing that focal point number 9 in the final. Like, they just couldn't get out because Cavalry just kept hemming them in, and they had Benny Bonga and Nana Mpoma up top at points, and they just couldn't make the ball stick up there, right? Like, that's Brian Wright's job. That's what he does so well on this Forge side. And this game and the rest of the playoffs is really why they signed Brian Wright. So to have him coming in hot, to have themselves in decent form as well, like, this is the clash of the Titans in the CPL, and I'm just so excited to see which one of them is kind of draws first blood, and if we're going to get a second match between these two clubs, or if really they're able to kind of knock the other off their perch this year and reach a final.
Yeah, it really is going to be a fun one. Forge obviously lost in this game last year at home, which is why the final was in Calgary. And as you mentioned, we're very clearly missing that number 9 in all of their playoff games. Really, it's a different Forge team. But I like, Mitchell, that you mentioned how we don't really talk about how this Atletico Ottawa team is one of the best in CPL history or historic. We might not, though. Diego Mejia does. All right, their coach has come in this year, and he has been obviously a breath of fresh air at that club. He talks a huge game in Ottawa. He has been very bullish. He backs his guys. He talks about how he believes this Ottawa team is special, is one of the greatest ever assembled in the CPL, and can do very special things this year. Now, because they didn't quite manage to win the Shield, the pressure is on, because if you talk like that, then you really, really want to be winning that North Star Cup and having something to show for it. So, Mitch, I do think that, Forge being at home and having won the Shield and having beaten Ottawa already this year, they are the favorites heading into this game. So if you're Atletico Ottawa, what needs to happen on Sunday to beat Forge and to secure that home final?
I think Atletico Ottawa need to learn how to deal with pressure. Like, I think pressure has really been the thing that has kind of cost them all season, is those pressure situations. You go back to a semifinal against Vancouver FC in the Canadian Championship, and they're unable to get that over the line. You look at the games that they've played against Forge, you know, Forge scoring late, losing 2-0 in Hamilton back on August 17th. You even look at the way the season played out, some of those games in Winnipeg and against Vancouver FC, where the pressure was on, and they're not able to get wins in those games. Like, this is a young Ottawa team. And I think the one thing that we haven't seen from them yet this season is, when the lights are the brightest, can they perform? And there's no brighter lights than the CPL playoffs, really, in terms of what these teams want. So this is that chance. This is that opportunity in Hamilton, again, against a Forge team who are going to be favored, considering Ottawa haven't beaten Forge this year. This is really going to be their opportunity to prove that they can deal with that pressure, that they can play in these big matches. And that's really the next evolution of this side. And at the most important time of year, let's see if they can do it.
That game, of course, the championship semifinal at 2:00 Eastern on Sunday afternoon at Hamilton Stadium. Live on OneSoccer, live on TSN. Don't miss it. And likewise, don't miss later that evening when Cavalry FC host York United in I believe what we're calling the semifinal qualifier between what is the third and fifth place teams in the CPL after York won last night. This one has a lot to talk about, as well as a lot of storylines going into this one. Josh, you just watched York play last night, but you've also spent some time watching Cavalry this year for sure. Maybe you can break this one down just to start for us. Like, what are some of the key things that you're thinking about heading into this Cavalry York playoff game?
Yeah, well, one of the things I was thinking about last night is whoever emerged from the Wanderers York United match, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. was going to be ecstatic that it went so long, and so many players are likely very drained from a long night out here on the East Coast. Then you have to add in, of course, the travel and the quick turnaround. I don't think people really appreciate just how far geographically Halifax and Calgary are. It's a long trip. It's not something you wake up at 6 p.m. and or wake up at 6 a.m. Sorry, and you're there by 10. It's a long haul, likely with a connection. We've heard, going back to 2023, about even the best laid plans of mice and men can go awry. Pacific, for example, slept in the airport for their third place match or whatever. So on Cavalry side, one of the biggest things as well, though, and I don't think we've got an update on it, is Sergio Camargo went out with a non-contact injury in the last match of the season. They're a different team without Camargo in the lineup. I think back to when Atletico Ottawa beat them 3-0, which, to most people would have been a statement win. But goalkeeper Nathan Mingan said, they didn't have Camargo in. So, there's almost an asterisk beside it because of how much he does in the build-up, but also in playing that final ball on for their attackers, whether it be Gauthier Antigny, Tobias Warshevsky, or Ali Musi. Again, I think there's a lot to be said for having that rest period. But we've just witnessed that this York United team has that drive in them. They have that passion and composure to go on the road and upset arguably the favorites in this position. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they line up tactically versus Cavalry. But they showed a versatility last night where they could go with a 3 midfield. They can stick with their wing backs, but they're going to bring the heat, and I think it's going to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think it always is between these clubs. We can't forget, obviously, as we head into the playoffs, that Cavalry are the reigning champions. They have been outstanding at home in the playoffs, especially last year. I guess they only played one home playoff game last year, but they won it. It was probably the best game they've played in club history. They played Forge off the pitch. But Camargo is a huge storyline, right? He's arguably been Cavalry's best player this year. we believe it's a calf injury, and I believe the latest I've heard is that he is considered doubtful for this game. And if he's not available to play, that's a massive blow to Cavalry. Don't forget, Tobias Warshevsky also didn't play on the weekend last Saturday against Vancouver FC. It doesn't sound like his injury is quite as serious, so if he's back in, then that is a boost for the Cavs. But if they're without Camargo, then that is a big deal because he has played very well against York in particular over the last few years. York, by the way, technically had the season series over Cavalry. Both teams won twice. York had a slightly better goal difference. They were the only team that won a game by more than one goal. So technically, if they'd tied in the standings, York would have finished above them. And York are one of only two teams, the other being Atletico Ottawa, to win as the away team at Atco Field this season. Right. So it's it's a matchup that I think is going to be a lot closer than some people expect. Mitch, we'll finish with you here. Obviously, you've been watching these clubs all season. You've watched Cavalry throughout their history in the CPL playoffs. They are the favorites, but what goes through your mind when you see this matchup in a playoff game?
Yeah, I mean, Josh certainly laid out perfectly the physical limitations that now York are going to be dealing with and why you don't want to be playing in that 4-5 game. This is exactly the reason. With that being said, like there's a mental boost, an incredible mental boost that they're going to get from the way that game played out, and they're going to come in feeling almost invincible, and Cavalry are going to know that, right? Like they're going to know that they're going to have to do something special to bury this York team mentally, at least, because York's never going to feel like they're out of the game, no matter really what happens on Sunday. With that being said, Cavalry are so good at home. Like you said, they have 16 goals in their past 5 home games. Like they're unbeaten at home since they lost to York, I believe, at home back on July 26th. So they're in quite a good stretch at home. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see. Like, I think that they have the players to compensate for losing Camargo. Like you could shift Alva centrally. You could play Musi in there even and put Warshevsky out wide. But it's about getting that mix right. You've for most of the season, like you've just been able to write Camargo in pen and been like, okay, we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about how stuff shifts around him. Camargo is our guy. So really, I think a lot of this is going to come down to how Tommy Wilden Jr. sets up his side, how he gets that mix of great attacking talent and even the midfield too below them right in this game. And then on York's side of things, it's very interesting to see who recovers. Do they get Lopez back? Josh mentioned it in our chat just now. Like Shola Jimo's, I believe, off with the U17 side. Like their camp starts tomorrow, so you lose a player who is very, very good coming off the bench, getting an assist, and has been excellent in his playoff appearances so far. Is Farron good to go? Altabelli and Hundle just played 120 minutes each. Like there's so many guys that he's going to have to manage. Botello. Yeah, does Botello come back in? Like there's a lot of question marks as well. So it's going to be like the second the starting lineups come out until how many ever minutes we play in this one, there's going to be so much that we don't know. And that's what makes these playoff matches so exciting. And from both a tactical and a storyline perspective, this is a very fascinating one.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about heading into these games. We're going to be tracking it all over at campbell.ca and onesoccer.ca. Do not miss any of that because we'll be all over both games on Sunday afternoon in the CPL playoffs. Guys, this is the best time of year. It is going to be fantastic. We've got 2 awesome games coming up this weekend. Plus, we'll see whatever happens between those games to see what we have next weekend. And then obviously the CPL final on November 9th. Playoff bracket up on your screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. York United, the first team to win a game in this year's playoffs. Their first road playoff win, by the way, in club history. Congratulations to York United. Anyway, we will be back with you on Monday to break down all of the hopefully more madness that we have over the course of these 2 playoff games. Just a reminder, Forge versus Atletico Ottawa at Hamilton Stadium, 2:00 p.m. Eastern, followed by Cavalry versus York United, 6:00 Eastern, 4:00 Mountain, 3:00 Pacific. All of it on OneSoccer and TSN across the country. So you have no excuses for missing any of it. We certainly will not be, and we'll be back with you all next Monday.